Everything you moved through wasn't resistance, it was the draw of the bow. 2026 is a path of release for you, and it's realigning you very, very quickly. Reality is reconfiguring itself and rearranging itself to correspond with the internal shift and transformation that has already occurred within you, okay? So this is gonna fling you forward towards success. If you think about drawing the bow when we talk about the archer, this is a very specific trajectory that you're heading in, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the messages that we have for today. So the first one we have is fusion, right? And this talks about spirit and matter working together. So it's where spirit manifests into form, okay, and it experiences itself through form, through this vessel of possibility that allows you to roam this realm. And then the second one we have is firepower, which is Chandra. So I'm going to go ahead and read them for you so you can actually take a look at what they entail. And then we also have the solar plexus energy, which is cultivating a strong sense of self-trust, a profound sense of self-trust as you move through this system, being able to trust that as you make this next choice, you're instantaneously collapsing that timeline into form all around you. So let me go ahead and read fusion for you. Right, fusion talks about union, creativity. So it basically is the triad, as you can see in the middle. And the left side is going to be the feminine, and then the right is the masculine. And it talks about how you have the physical and the non-physical, the mind, and also the emotions. And once you master your internal worlds, you'll also master your relationship with matter and the physical material plane. So this talks about a nuclear process, keeping all the stars burning. It's about the integration, which is about becoming whole within yourself, which is to become healed. It talks about alchemy and innovation, the union of two or more parts to shape something new. And this is in your physical experience. And it just talks about reality not being static. Instead, it's a continuous summation of infinite quantum paths, each encoded as a wave of possibility. And you get to choose whatever possible ocean of infinite potential realities you want to be able to collapse around you, and which one you want to experience in a linear fashion. Okay, so the balance and union of forces creates a new force that did not exist before. We knew object A and its working, so this is how the spirit moves. And we also knew object B and its workings, which is about the physical vessel being a tool in order for you to navigate this realm. And it reminds me of your intuition being a finely tuned instrument that's going to assist you in discerning what it is that you actually want to experience and what feels so aligned for you in your experience on Earth. So we have never witnessed the creation and the results of the combination of A and B coming together. So this is that full integration process where the higher self begins to become seated and anchored throughout this entire organism of consciousness. And you remember yourself as not just purely this physical vessel, but instead the timeless consciousness that's navigating this realm. You see time as something that is an illusion. And if that's so, and it's not something that's linear, then a lot of your intuition, your gut instincts are going to be messages from your future self, like you're walking yourself back in a linear fashion and witnessing the unfoldment of your life's journey. And as that happens, it's like a memory unfolding before you. Anyway, so this is guidance that you're setting yourself, right? And you're experiencing the unfoldment. Okay, so it also talks about the forming of A and B that brings everything together. It's a new energy that's formed through union and communion, the ability to create something beyond the known. What comes together is always totally beneficial for both parties. So it's not just beneficial when it comes to your material physical existence on Earth, but also the growth that you're going to be taking. I'm hearing etheric growth that you're going to be bringing with you after this lifetime, and the things in which you wanted to experience on this, in this third dimension, essentially. So the colors of the sunset: a hug, a couple, a sun, two businesses, two ideas, two people, or three or four, a work of art modified by another artist, a remix of a song, the number of 3, the spirit with the material. And that's exactly what it is. You're experiencing yourself within this terrestrial plane because you have this vessel as a tool, this carbon-based life form that allows your cosmic origins to begin to explore this terrain, essentially. And this is a playground, and there's something about you being able to come back into that childlike essence and existence, where you begin to step into that realm of Leela, essentially, that veil of Maya, right? The veil of forgetting, the illusion of separation within this realm begins to lift, the human condition begins to lift, and instead you're being invited to look at life on earth through the lens of the soul. So it talks about born through love between your parents. So this is you. So this is the conception of something, essentially, and it feels like something's being conceived in your reality. Okay, I'm hearing like you're expecting or you're carrying right now. And then we have creative what's this one? Creative power, Chandra. I'm gonna go ahead and read this for you. This is the first time this card has ever come out. And again, we're about to head into the fire horse year. So this talks about human beings want to be free. We want to choose our own destiny. And you have the opportunity and wanted to be able to do that in this realm around how you want to apply your free will. If something is holding you back, break the chains, unleash your inner fire, and use it to fuel your actions. It's time for a breakthrough. And if you guys remember earlier this year when we did this message right by the Sphinx, we were talking about how it's aligned with the fixed star Regulus. It's after the Leo constellation. And that's about you stepping into your own season of authority, where you begin to become that leader for yourself in this existence, and you don't outsource that guidance. It's not about you outsourcing your trust. Instead, you become your own source, and that's a hidden wellspring and an infinite wellspring that you can draw from at any given point in time, okay, along your space-time travels. So it also talks about break the chains, unleash your inner fire, and use it to fuel your actions. It's time for a breakthrough. So this is a huge breakthrough. It feels like you're also on the verge of a breakthrough. Again, that resistance was the bow and arrow drawing back, and now this year is a launch pad, right? This is going to be your time for action. The reverse and what it is that you've overcome is finding out what drives you and your actions. Are you in control of that force, or is it controlling you? So this is the difference between the soul and the ego, and which one is leading you in this experience. Is the soul leading you through form, leading the flesh, or do you feel like the flesh is kind of autopiloting in this experience, right? So can you watch your reaction as it is happening, and then get into the driver's seat to consciously steer your action instead of unconsciously reacting to them. So again, that's going to be the invitation right now to see what's driving you. Is it attachment? Because what we attach to, we often fear to release, okay? And that comes from a contracted place. So when we begin to attach to the outcome too much, we kind of lose the magic in this experience, because in the quantum field, that is the unknown. Unknown energy is being open to things unfolding in a way that are beyond the human comprehension, in a way that you could have never planned in the physical. And when you do that, it exceeds any expectations you could have had in the first place. So it's not really about releasing the goal. Instead, it's about being open to the ways that you may be able to attain or experience the completion of that, and really being able to fully enjoy the scenery amongst those changes that maybe you don't plan, and instead begin to embrace it, because it's still going to turn out the way you hope, but maybe not the way that you had planned, because there's a bigger plan in store. So yeah, this talks about Planeswalker and also Pyromancer, who never fail to find a new way to use the fire. And again, when we talk about fire, we're talking about life force, we're talking about drive, we're talking about will, which makes so much sense for the solar plexus to come out today. So let me go ahead and read this one for you. As you guys know, it actually talks about abundance, downloads, regeneration, and success. However, it talks about the central sun, which actually is the main domain or portal. So this is a specific domain or octave of yourself that you'll be able to see reality through. And the message of this one is: the great central sun is shining brightly into your life and upon your world. This is a time to regenerate, tiredness and old energy being washed away. Old skins have peeled off to reveal a sacred and more aligned you. This is an exciting time, for the central sun is in your energy, and it's magnetic and all-powerful, opening you up to the light and supporting you as you express your own light in this lifetime. New ideas, opportunities and experiences come easily to you at this time, like like the sun kissing the perfectly ripe soil, the seeds you've planted are being encouraged to grow. Realize that in order to go beyond your horizon, it's important for you to welcome your energetic exchanges. So this is being confident in the way that you exchange your life force, also your attention in this realm. And when you help others, you let yourself be helped in return. When you invest energy in projects, you let yourself be invested in return. So ways to kind of pinpoint that when it comes to the ego versus the soul and which one is running your life. When it comes to themes of control versus surrender from an ego standpoint, this is where you may act from that sense of urgency and survival and try to force certain timelines into your experience and outcomes as well, especially expectations that we may set upon, something outside of us where we feel like happiness exists when we attain that thing or after that goal is reached, but we can anchor happiness and ground that into the physical vessel in the now, right? When we feel like, okay, we need this external thing in order for us to feel safe, we can actually draw and anchor safety into the now. And that's what it is to become whole, to be able to move through this existence with that desire and not towards it, because otherwise you're in resonance with its absence and not its presence, okay? And from a soul level, it's about acting from that place of trust and inner knowing, especially when we're talking about the solar plexus, and allowing the timing to reveal itself in its, natural secret order to what may appear disorderly to the human mind, to the analytical mind, because sometimes you're going to be guided in ways that go beyond the human's comprehension. And then when we also talk about fear versus trust, the ego can sometimes assume the worst case scenario, and this is also going to be dual forces that are always coexisting within us. So how well can we hold space for that part of ourselves? And this is the part that creates those expectations, can also cling to safety patterns, right? To what has been familiar, can come with the illusion of being safe because it's something that we have a certain acquaintance with. And instead, the soul leans in the other trajectory where it believes in the realm of possibilities, deeply trusts the intuition, and also sees the unknown as a friend rather than something to fear, and as something that's infinite. The unknown is a realm that we can allow ourselves to lean into and know that that's really where our full potential lies. It's on the other side of that fear. And sometimes acting even in the presence of that fear, that's the moment where you become greater than your emotions, you become greater than your mind, and you begin to master your relationship and also shift and change your relationship with not just the physical realm, but you also shift emotionally your relationship to your journey on earth as well. And when it comes to scarcity versus abundance and those themes, the ego lives in, okay, things are not enough, and there can be also fears of loss, therefore we may cling onto something, and then we're actually disrupting that natural flow of giving and receiving, right? The masculine and the feminine, which is what the A and B was in the fusion. And it also must believe that its worth is something that has to be proven as well, whereas the soul lives in overflow and knows that there's more enough, and it begins to circulate freely through this existence. Instead, it knows that its worth is inherent, right? Its worth is within. It's always been a highly abundant being, and instead it's kind of dissolving and alchemizing those belief systems that have been disrupting or distorting the way that you see yourself here as a creator in this realm. And then we talk about themes of judgment versus compassion. Judgment is actually a survival mechanism where we truly want to separate ourselves from maybe an avenue that within us, right? We block ourselves off from an actual octave that exists within us when we judge ourselves, and we also begin to become disconnected to those around us, right? When we judge those around us, that's the one that compares, and comparison is the thief of joy. That's the one that criticizes or operates through shame, right? That can often come through deep shame, and also fears rejection secretly. So rejects before it is even rejected, even if it's rejecting parts of itself before the external can, right? And then the law of resonance, states that that's going to be mirrored in the external, because life is always coming from you. It's never happening even to you, but it's happening through you. So the soul instead encourages, right? It begins to encourage us, and our experience here. It learns through compassion. It learns to be compassionate to that part of ourselves that, may judge. And it also operates through that love, which is just unconditionally accepting that even, that voice that may exist within us. And when we begin to observe that, we recognize ourselves not as the thoughts, but the one that's observing them. That voice also then becomes background noise in a coffee shop. And we begin to become liberated when we see everything operating from a call for love, which is often the difference of the voice of the ego, and also an act of love from the soul, which is when you are gentle with yourself in this experience, really, gentle with yourself, even as you move through changes, even if you navigate things that could feel like almost like a new entire existence for you. Maybe this is like a new lifetime within this lifetime. I'm seeing what could be classed in matrix terms as a midlife crisis, but really don't be afraid to create a new story for yourself in this existence, because you may just like this one better. It gives me that energy. Then when we talk about inauthenticity and also being authentic, the ego likes to mask emotions much of the time. It likes to play roles for approval, and it also avoids that vulnerability as a result of that. But vulnerability is really the only bridge to connection. When we begin to put ourselves out there, it becomes a connecting bridge, right, where it strengthens our connection to actually timelines that then become accessible to us. For example, if you created something as a creator in this existence, like music or art or something, and then you shared it with the world, what you're doing is sending ripples through space and time. The actions that you're taking in the present moment is actually anchoring a certain future timeline into the now, and people begin to intersect with those ripples that you've sent out. That causes worldwide collisions. People come into alignment with you or something that you create when you put yourself out there. So if we see it as a strength, as a connecting bridge, and also a bond, right, where we're kind of like bonding ourselves, the soul will begin to show truth, that we live in alignment, and it also allows vulnerability to deepen the connection, not just that we have to ourselves, but also to all other souls having a human experience around us. And then when we talk about the source of motivation, the ego is motivated by fear of not being enough a lot of the times, maybe not having enough, or being unseen, right, where we feel like we have to be visible in order for something to be valuable, when in essence a diamond forms underneath the ground long before it's even discovered. So this talks about unseen potential, and the diamond still having this beautiful value to it, whether it's seen or unseen. And that could be before your work is discovered, maybe before you're seen in some way as well. And because of that, the soul is motivated by love and expansion. It moves from inspiration and not desperation, right? And when we talk about your relationship with reality, that's also a really important one, because the ego lives in separation of duality of this is good versus bad, this is success versus failure, when really both coexist with each other through one journey, right? For example, failure is not the finish line. Instead, it is a part of the journey towards success. And it's when we also see failure as something that is not finite, instead it's almost like us collecting data around what works and doesn't, and we see it as things as more of an experimentation, then you can become more curious about that path and what that looks like, and you'll be more open to it and actually begin to embrace it, just because it's not the end. And then the soul lives in unity, right? It sees all life as one. It recognizes both. It's not just me versus you, but it's also me versus me a lot of the time, and how you're working with yourself in tandem. And when we talk about the ego's core identity, it operates from that belief of, okay, I am what I think, have, or do. So it's all tied to external validation, status, or even possessions, to opinions or comparison. And it needs to maintain that image or constantly defend it in some way. Whereas in stark contrast, when we talk about the soul's identity, it operates from the I am. It's rooted in unity or peace or love or inspiration, joy, wholeness, because it recognizes itself as part of the whole and everything contributing towards this experience. It's always in benefit for the soul's expansion to experience, this contrast, but see it from that neutral observer, that's still non-judgmental observer. And then you'll be able to see the beauty in the paradox. You'll be able to kind of embrace the contrast and keep yourself in the center of it. And yeah, when that happens, it expresses itself. It doesn't try to, create for the sake of being perceived, but instead it just creates for creation's sake. And when you create from that joyful place, you have this exothermic reaction, much like the sun, right? With the firepower, you transfer light and heat and consciousness towards your surroundings. So yeah, it's beautiful. Your ego is not the enemy. That's the message. It's survival mechanism that we often misidentify with. We mistake ourselves for. You don't have to believe all thoughts that stream into your your awareness. It wants to kind of protect you and keep you safe with the awareness that it has, but nonetheless, its level of awareness actually does become a cage. So how far will you allow yourself to stretch beyond your familiarity or your comfort zone before you revert or attract back to what feels familiar to you? That would be my question. One who operates from ego versus the one who operates from the soul's life will be defined whether that flow comes from inner truth, essentially, in a nutshell, or external illusion, right? When we lose ourselves to the illusion, essentially, and our focus is turned away from the intangible realm, and instead we become too entangled with the material that we forget ourselves as an immaterial being. So I'm gonna love any of you guys right there. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing. Let me know, what do you feel like the drawback was? What do you feel like the aim was for you? And what is that target that you're experiencing unfold? What is that event that you're seeing unfold in its becoming of what already exists for you and what has already came to be, right? Past tense, or has come to be, is simultaneously existing, that you're watching the inevitable unfoldment of when it comes to the story of your life. What story is to be told? And what story is yours? Are you dreaming? Or are you living in your dream? Because those who look outside dream, and those who look inside awaken within it. So, I'll speak to you very soon. Until next time, bye!